Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So, today we're going to talk about two questions, two things that have arisen, two ideas, concepts, whatever you want to call them, that have popped up after the Potter verdict and the fallout from that. And as people try to figure out where things go from here and what the next steps are, what the next developments are going to be, there are two takeaways that are getting a whole lot of discussion. And we're just going to kind of go through them real quick. One is that this verdict is going to lead to more aggressive prosecution of law enforcement, and that it's going to lead law enforcement to change their ways, because this seemed to have been a very fair prosecution, charged correctly, everything done by the numbers, and they got a guilty verdict against a cop. So, let's kind of run through it. Is this going to lead to more aggressive prosecution of law enforcement? Maybe. Maybe. Lawyers don't like to lose. So, if for a long time a certain demographic has been held unaccountable, they tend not to pick up the case unless it's really strong. This does show that the minds of juries are changing a little bit. But it also shows this to defense attorneys. So what you may see are more officers willing to take a plea deal. I think that's probably going to be your most likely outcome from this. Now, the other idea is that it's going to get better because this is going to show law enforcement that they need to change their ways. There are going to be lessons learned. And there will be. However, I am nowhere near as optimistic as a lot of people who are making this claim. The lessons learned have to do with, ensuring that officers don't make errors, don't make mistakes when it comes to the use of force. The idea that just because you're frustrated doesn't actually warrant an escalation in the use of force. The addressing the over-reliance on the use of force overall, a move towards consent-based policings. These should be the lessons learned. That's not going to be the lesson learned, though. More than likely, I'm sure there are already trainers now who have their takeaway from it. And the takeaway is, do not admit on camera that you were wrong after you made a mistake. That's what they're going to take away from it. They're going to pin it all on that. Now, the reality is that isn't going to change the outcome of future prosecutions. I really don't think it's going to matter that much. But I think before law enforcement gets that idea and understands that, there's going to be more officers convicted. Then the next one is coming from an entirely different way. It's coming from those who would back the blue. And the idea is, doctors, they make mistakes and they don't get charged with manslaughter. What's that about? Well, first, that's not true. They totally do. That happens. Medical professionals that are negligent go against best practices, so on and so forth. If it is severe enough, they will in fact be charged with manslaughter. That's true. That happens. The flip side to that is they can be held accountable through the civil process, lawsuits and so on and so forth. Individual officers, really, it's really hard to do that. Now, the crowd that wanted to reform law enforcement, one of the things they wanted to do was get rid of qualified immunity so they could be held accountable through the civil process. And it would basically end up with law enforcement carrying what amounts to malpractice insurance. That's probably how that would end up working out. But those who back the blue twisted everything, lied, and made it sound like, then cops would be going to jail if that went away, which incidentally led to cops going to jail. Bumper sticker politics when it comes to complex issues, slogans when it comes to complex issues, never really benefit anybody. They really don't. And that's what happened. The idea of getting rid of qualified immunity, that was floated. Those attempting to reform law enforcement tried that. And law enforcement freaked out. Because at the time, they had a pretty decent shield from criminal prosecution. The average person was going to give them the benefit of the doubt. That isn't occurring anymore. Because they see that they're unaccountable. So anybody who makes that comparison between medical professionals and law enforcement, they're drawing on the idea that there's some way within the civil process to hold the officer personally accountable. And in some jurisdictions, that's possible, but it's rare. It is incredibly rare. Most times they are shielded from personal liability. So it's a bogus argument. It's not a legitimate one. At the end of the day, when you're looking at this case, it was charged very well. The prosecution didn't try to turn it into a thing where, she intended to go do this horrible thing and get that other charge put on there. Negligence. Reckless. They went with the reality of the case and they got a conviction. So I don't necessarily see that leading to more aggressive prosecution, though. What I see it is when there is somebody who is acting with bad intent, where a more severe charge might be warranted, I see them taking a plea. But we'll have to wait and see. Trying to guess the future decision-making process of hundreds, if not thousands, of prosecutors across the country based off of one incident, that doesn't really seem like a sound strategy. We're just going to have to wait and see what happens. But overall, I do not think that this case in and of itself is going to be a game changer, because I don't think law enforcement is going to be learning the right lessons. They're still going to be looking for a way to circumvent it, to circumvent being held accountable, rather than adjusting the behavior that needs to be changed. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.